Hello, I am here with John Munsell. He is the CEO and founder of an AI company. And I'm so happy that you're here, John, because you have just graduated not only from the Resilient Transformation Academy, but also our Mastermind Group, which is Change Your Mind, Create New Results. And you've had some pretty amazing transformational moments during the time that we've been together. And I would love for you to just share with our audience a little bit about maybe where you were before you and I got together and some of the frameworks and the things that you've learned and where you are now.
Sure. Well, so before I had done a lot of Dispenza work. So I've been through some of Joe Dispenza's training. I read one of his books. I listened to a lot of his audio. So I was pretty familiar with it. And the reason I joined your group and the reason I stacked them both up at the same time was because I wanted to compress my ability to achieve results into a tighter time frame. I didn't want to stack one and then 6 months later go into another. I needed to get stuff changed quickly. At least that was my mindset, right? And so what I wanted to do was establish a framework or a process or a routine that I knew I could get into to make this a constant part of my life and my thinking rather than an occasional one. You know,
Mhm.
it's almost like prayer. You don't want to be in a position where you pray just because you're desperate, and only when you're desperate. When you can put it into a process where it's a daily thing and your prayer isn't one of need, but one of gratitude. Because gratitude is you have it, right? Man, things change. And so going through your course allowed me to create that process to where it was a daily thing. And the other thing was the the whole heart brain math coherence thing and the inner balance was really cool for me. And it was frustrating, as you know, it was really frustrating for me. But what was cool was, for those who haven't done it, you put this little device on your ear and it connects to an app on your phone and it shows you when you're in and out of coherence. And the competitive side of me is always wanting to beat the machine. And then the ADD side of me is drifting off. And then the panic side of me is like, I'm losing to the machine. And then there's the other part of me that's overthinking that I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about. And what I'm thinking about is messing with the machine, right? So what it forced me to do was come up with my own way to calm my mind and just focus with nothing else in the way. And I had been through transcendental meditation training, right? And it didn't work for me because I could never silence my brain. But being able to see it in this app allowed me to figure out a way to silence my brain, if you will. So that was probably one of the biggest moments for me is like, oh, okay, I know now what I have to think about in order to become nobody, no time, nowhere. As Dispenza puts it, there's probably a couple other no's in there that I'm not remembering. But anyway, that was a big thing for
Aware.
me. And the results have been pretty amazing too, Julie. Because a lot of it was just reframing my thinking. And I think I shared with you that at the beginning, when I said I wanted to build a $3 million company that I just essentially started up, I wanted it to do 3 million in revenue. And a guy in the group said, why not 30? And I thought, okay, well, that's an interesting thing. That was a seed that got planted in your group. And subconsciously, I was kind of constant, I guess massaging that as a possibility. And consciously, I'm exercising like I'm going to build a $3 million company. But my focus in all my meditations was just bring me the resources I need to accelerate growth. And I met with some people over the last several weeks that literally a $30 million company in year one is actually a possibility. It's crazy to even think about, but it's actually a possibility. So
I really appreciate you sharing your journey along the way and how you got frustrated, but then you were inspired, and then you saw these old habits and patterns coming up. And that's a lot of the stuff that we talk about. And so I want to break that down just a little bit for some of the listeners, because they may be saying, well, yeah, I have these thoughts that are running and I can't silence my mind, but using that biofeedback app, you were able to see it and see what was running underneath the subconscious. Because we talk about how by the time we're 35 years old, 95% of who we are is a set of memorized habits and patterns and emotional responses. So it sounds like you really started to see that. And then being part of this mastermind group, part of what we do is we challenge each other. We really push each other. We give each other ideas, and just opening up to the idea from a $3 million to a $30 million company really had you expand your level of consciousness. And this is a lot of stuff that we talk about, is we're expanding our consciousness to see other possibilities. And when we can get out of the way, nobody, no time, no where, then those possibilities can begin to happen. And so can you share a little bit more about how that shifted and then what you drew to you? Because a big thing that we do is we sit inside that possibility, we become that possibility, the way that you were saying about prayer, and that you're sitting inside of gratitude, thanking that it's already here. And then look what's happening in your life. Can you share a little bit with the audience about what is actually happening in your life now that you went to the $30 million possibility?
sure. So I had a software development and digital marketing agency for the last 25 years, and I sold that 2 years ago. And the idea was, excuse me, the idea was that I would become a fractional CMO for companies. And when I landed a couple of CMO clients, I realized I didn't want to be that, right? And so I started this other group called the CXO AI Roundtable to try to figure out, because we'd been using AI for years, but I wanted to figure out, what is it that the market wants solve? What's the problem the market wants solved? So I did that for the better part of, I don't know, well, I did it for a full year, but about 6 months in, I could see what the problem was that the market wanted solved. And so I switched gears entirely to work with businesses who wanted to learn more about how to leverage AI to scale their companies and increase profit margins, et cetera. All right, so I refocused the company with that in mind, and then I realized, okay, I I don't have the capital to really scale this company the way I would like to, and I don't want a company with a whole bunch of employees before. We had grown the previous company to be in the Inc. 5000 3 times. We had up to 40 employees at one point. I didn't want that anymore. And so I came to you and I said, look, I want to build a $3 million company with fewer than 10 employees. That's my goal. I want to be simplified, I guess. Um, and so then when I think it was Kevin brought up the idea, why not 30? Then I was like, okay, then my focus should be on uh, seeing that I have the resources without qualifying what those resources are, right? Without saying I have X amount of dollars and I'm doing this, that, and the other thing, and without visualizing the path. And that's one thing that I noticed about the app. Every time I would visualize a specific path, my scores would tank. When I would stop visualizing the path and just feeling the outcome of it being realized, then my scores would go up, but stuff would happen. I mean, crazy things would happen. And that's where when I started to really focus on, okay, you know, God, I am so thankful for the resources that I have before me that are helping me build this business faster than I ever thought possible. Right. And so I'm sitting in gratitude. And you can't sit in gratitude without seeing it already there. Right. And so instead of trying to see what it looked like, I just tried to embody what it felt like, if that makes sense. And the more I felt that, the more I could zero out everything else that was in my brain. So I didn't see anything. I wasn't distracted by anything. I was just absorbing the feeling. And
So
then
beautiful.
all of a
That's the
sudden,
magic.
pardon me?
That's the magic.
That's the magic. And so what happened was I got an email from a guy at LSU, which is an hour away, and he said, "Hey, this other fella tells me you're doing some great things with AI. We at LSU are doing some really cool things with AI, and we want to be the voice of AI in Louisiana. I'd love to come talk to you and see what you're doing." I'm like, "Sure, come on over." And so he schedules a meeting that's like 5 weeks out because he's a busy guy, I guess. And 5 weeks comes by and an alarm comes up as I'm in the middle of a meeting with my team on Zoom. And it says, this guy's going to be here in 15 minutes. And I'm like, I wonder who that is. And then I was like, oh, y'all, I think it's that LSU guy. And so I quickly clean up my office and he comes in and sits down and he says, so I'm the executive vice president and provost of LSU. Do you know what that is? And I was honestly, I don't know. He goes, well, there's the president and then there's me, and I'm over all of academia. And I'm like, oh, I should have worn a nicer shirt. So I should have been better. So he's over everything. He basically, the president of LSU is the queen. He's the guy that runs everything, right? So he makes the president look good. So he's number two. Um, I show him what I'm doing. He's like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. This is next level stuff. And then he said, would you want to teach our honors students next semester? And I'm like, I don't know that I could do that because I'd have to commute to Baton Rouge. But I said we could have a better impact on the workforce of Louisiana and the entire world, if not just the United States, if we taught businesses how to get their employees to learn how to use AI rather than how to build AI. I said we could reach a whole lot more people. And he goes, I love that idea. And so he then connected me with continuing ed, LSU's continuing ed department. So they saw the training that I was putting together. Now we have a partnership with LSU through their continuing ed, and we've created this AI upskilling, what we call Skills Builder, which is a series of discipline focused skills tracks. So for like HR, accounting, legal, operations, sales, and marketing. So instead of having somebody go through a generic AI course where they're learning robotics and they're in HR, they learn from a common framework and then they move into skills tracks that are specific to their job so they can execute better. And that has started to take off. And yesterday I had another group come over here and they were like, oh, we want to be part of this. And then they had an idea for focusing on governments. And then I was like, well, we could actually niche down a bunch of other ways and we could get resellers. And anyway, I also connected with a company that has a learning management system that's on 1.5 million desktops. And we could put our training inside of their LMS and license it out to 1.5 million people pretty quickly. So that's where it could go nuts. So anyway, so I'm excited.
So it really sounds like you've got the framework
Yeah,
to create in a way bigger way than you would have ever dreamt possible
right.
after going through these courses together.
Yeah.
And I'll just share this too, because we talk about the laws, the principles and the laws of the universe in these courses. And one of the things that we talk about is the law of energy. Energy
Mm-hmm.
cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed, it can only change forms. We as human beings are 99.99% energy. That's made up of how we think and how we feel. And so, John, I love that you're saying this, is that you became the energy of a $30 million company. You held that vision. And we always say, don't ask how it's going to be done, just trust that it will be done. And I think another tidbit that I find very interesting is that LSU is your alma mater. So
Right.
what a great story with something that you're so passionate about. And you began to think bigger. You began to think not just about working with the students at LSU, but how can we impact the world in a bigger way? How can we impact the state in a bigger way? That is the process of getting out of our own way and thinking bigger and being in a place of gratitude and a place of service. And you start to draw things to you versus having to go do it. And I love what you said about every time I would think about the how, when you were on the little biofeedback, you could see your body and your brain going into a state of incoherence,
Right.
meaning it would get nervous or fear would come up, or how am I going to do that? But instead you're resting and embodying in the energy of your desired outcome. And the other thing that I really would like to highlight, if people are like, wow, this is a really interesting technique, is, John, you're coming from a place of service. You're coming from a place of wanting to make the world a better place. So just really, really beautiful in how you frame that and how you worked within your own brain and body to see, where am I stopping myself? Where's the fear coming from? Where is this chaos coming from inside my body? And just letting go and letting go and letting go and being the energy of your outcomes. Really beautiful job.
No, thanks. Yeah, you were a big instrument in that whole thing. So um, I just learned so much that I didn't. I thought that I knew enough going into it, but you definitely switched it into another gear for me. So for that, I thank you. It's been a great experience.
You're very welcome. Do you find now, having this framework, do you find that it's a little bit easier in your day-to-day job and what you're doing to create, knowing that you have this framework, that you're not having to go do to get there, but you're resting and having faith in that outcome, and you know how to manage yourself and your energy to allow it to happen? You've had a lot of reinforcement to see that it does work.
Well, so I mean, a couple of things. I have little alarms that go off on my phone to remind me it's time to do a coherence session. Most of the time, I'm not around my little device, but I can take a couple minutes and just kind of recenter. But the thing that I didn't expect was it's almost like a, I don't know, a permanent change, right? While you have these little reset moments and you can go into moments where you're stressed and all of that stuff, over time, you gradually stay in that mindset of it's here, right? It's already here. And I think that's what has really helped me in these meetings with people, is because I have a different energy level than I probably would have had before. I would have gone into some meetings with oh gosh, I hope they say yes, right? And that's a different kind of energy you don't really want to put out there. So I don't know. I feel so much more confident, I guess is the way to put it, that it's available and it's here and it's now. And I just go into meetings now with enthusiasm and a positive energy. That's a big difference.
You've literally rewired your nervous system and you've rewired your brain. So
Yeah.
we say that you got to break the habit of being the old self to embody the new self. And would you say that in breaking that habit of the old fear and the disempowering thoughts, you've broken that habit, and now you know how to stay centered,
Yeah.
and you had the framework to do it?
Yeah. And it's a combination of things too, Julie. It's not just I guess the inner balance training and all that stuff. It's that once you project that energy out there, things change. And that becomes this I don't know, this whole energetic wheel that stays in motion, right? Because as things change and you see results, that boosts your confidence and your energy, and then that puts it back out there and it comes back, and that's the part that is kind of fascinating for me, is that uh, once you start seeing results happen, then you shift. The way I explain it to people is there's um, I guess there's belief, and then there's faith, right? And faith to me has I'm going up a little stair step, right? Faith to me is a belief in something that you're not really sure of, but you're just going to resolve that it could be a thing, right? Um, so if you go from like hope to belief to faith to what I call knowledge, when you know that it's going to happen, then there's no shifting necessary, right? That's a whole different energy, and it's just a slight step above faith, I guess. And the more certain things happen, the more you just know it, and so you go into a meeting with a different expectation. It's almost like you don't even have an expectation because you know what's going to happen, and that again, it just perpetuates the thing, which is really cool. I could take it as simple as finding things that are lost, and this is an exercise my wife is just a master at. She says, God, you know where it is, and if you know where it is, I know where it is. So show me. And within minutes, she'll find it. I mean, crazy stuff, right? And so this has been going on for years. And so I kind of incorporated that into this. And the other day, my daughter called me. She was over at our house, and then she went back to her house, and she said, "Okay, I'm missing one of the earbuds from my iPod earbuds, or what do they call it? Earbuds? I don't know what they call them.
AirPods.
AirPods. There we go." She says, and the tracking thing says it's over at your house in the front yard somewhere. I'm like, okay. I go, look. She goes, don't back out your car because I don't want you to run over it. I'll be over in a little bit. I'm like, okay. So she comes over, and we're looking all over the place for this little, white earbud, and or AirPod or whatever the heck it is. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to go into my little inner balance and my prayer, and I'm going to say, okay, God, you know where it is. And if you know, then I know. And so I'm going to shut up and listen. And so then the voice comes to you. And so I was like, go in the backyard, right? Even though the little radar thing is saying it's in the front yard, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go in the backyard. So I go in the backyard and I walk out there and I just kind of like stand there and I'm like, okay, if you know, I know. And then I walk a couple more steps forward, and Faith comes out, and my daughter, she comes out in the backyard, and she's like, have you found it? And I'm like, no, but I'm on it. And then I look, and at the base of a fig tree where the branches are way out, you can't get to it, without moving all kind of stuff. I'm like, there it is. And she goes, where, how'd you find it? I'm like, I just did the prayer that your mom does. And so, she had to go pull a bunch of branches out of the way to get to it. But, why it was there, who knows? But that's just a
And you
small
walked, you
example.
walked as if, you walked as if you had already found it.
Yeah.
And you allowed faith and prayer and your inner guidance to guide you to it.
Mm-hmm.
So just it's such a beautiful explanation of the framework and how you're using it. So how would you say that you're going to use this moving forward?
Oh, it's hard to say because it's a part of my life now. Right. So to say that I'm going to be using it would be um, saying that there's an intentional practice where it has become part of my routine, right? It's become part of my mindset now. Uh, so I mean, using it moving forward, I know that when I get off track, what to do, right? But for me, my whole goal starting this was to make it seamlessly a part of my life, and that's where I am. So I don't know whether that answers your question, but I'm there. I just
You have
know if I get off
become,
track, I know what to change.
you have become it.
Yeah,
That's what we say is that people will literally start waking up as a different person because you have reorganized internally to
hmm,
match the goals that you're desiring. You
yeah,
become that goal and then you operate as if. We
hmm,
say in the course is that when you start to change your thinking and you change your feeling inside, your actions just have to change naturally. Because if
hmm,
you're thinking, how am I going to do this? I'm worried about it. It's not going to happen versus this will happen. And I'm confident that it will happen, and you're going to act as if. So your actions and behaviors are completely different based on how you're thinking and how you're feeling. So you've aligned your actions and behaviors, and you're pulling things to you versus having to go out and get them. So it's
yeah,
it's a much faster way to create. And so thank you for sharing your story, John. It's so
you bet.
inspirational to other people. Thank you for outline or laying out the framework in which you did this, and congratulations on all your success and what you're drawing to you. And I just cannot wait to see where you're going to be in another 3 months.
Yeah, thanks. I'll keep you posted too.
Okay, congratulations.
All right.